দাত করো না, আল্লাহ ছাড়া কারো কাছে মাথা নত করো না। পীরের পূজা ঘরের পূজা ইসলামেতে নাই।
সুপ্রিয় দর্শক ভাই বোনেরা, জীবন জিজ্ঞাসায় আপনাদের চিঠিপত্রের আয়োজন আমরা সবসময় দেখিয়ে এসেছি। আজকে সুদূর আমেরিকা থেকে একজন মেহমান বাংলাদেশ সফরে আসার কারণে তার একটি মনোজ্ঞ সাক্ষাৎকার আপনাদের সামনে আমরা পেশ করছি। এই মেহমান হচ্ছেন বা আমেরিকার একজন ইসলামী স্কলার এবং পত্রিকার সম্পাদক ডক্টর আসলাম আবদুল্লাহ। তার সাক্ষাৎকার গ্রহণ করছেন আমাদের দেশের বরেণ্য চিন্তাবিদ সৈয়দ আশরাফ আলী।
বিসমিল্লাহির রহমানির রহিম। Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We have with us today Dr. Aslam Abdullah, a distinguished journalist from the United States of America. Dr. Abdullah had the rare distinction of being the editor of two prestigious journals simultaneously, one published from Los Angeles and the other from Detroit. The first one was the Minaret. It is no more in circulation now, and the second one is the Muslim Observer. It's a weekly published from Detroit. Dr. Abdullah is a renowned social worker and earned wide admiration for various types of community works, including relief operations. An erudite scholar, Dr. Abdullah has authored 11 books and more than 400 papers on Islam and its adherents to his credit. So this is quite an achievement. He was the vice chairman of the Muslim Public Affairs Council and president of the American Federation of Muslims from India, and he is at present the secretary general of the World Council of Muslims for interfaith relations, as well as he holds various other posts like director Islamic Society of Nevada, secretary general World Council of Muslims for Interfaith, I have already told that, and editor in chief of Muslim Observer, and then secretary Nevada Interfaith Council, and vice president of Muslim Council in America, which is Washington based. So it's a proud privilege to discuss topical items with this distinguished visitor. So I would not ask Dr. Abdullah to kindly let us know his learned views about some of the topics that I will raise for the benefit of ATN Bangla viewers.
Thank you very much.
At the very outset, I would like to know when and how the Minaret, which is not in circulation now, and the Muslim Observer saw the light of day in the United States.
Well, the Minaret started its publication as a monthly journal in 1990. That was the time when I had migrated to the United States,
Right.
and then we started that magazine primarily to focus on issues that affect Muslims. And the Observer was started in 1995, and Observer is now the largest circulated Muslim weekly in the United States.
Dear viewers, I forgot to mention one thing. Dr. Abdullah was born in India, but is a naturalized citizen of the United States now. So the second question is that, are both of these journals specifically aimed at disseminating the light and learning of Islam, or do those cater to other aspirations of the common readers as well?
I think you have raised a very important issue. The presence of these two journals, especially now the Muslim Observer, is primarily to create a dialogue between Muslims and others. Because we Muslims, especially in the Muslim Observer and the Muslim community, and Muslim Americans believe that America is a unique country in the world. This is the only country in the world where people of all ethnicities and all religious groups have come together under a secular law. This is the only country that basically allows the freedom of religion in every sense of the term without any interference. And this is perhaps the only religion that basically respects the freedom as part of its constitution. In the sense, no matter what happens, that freedom must be respected and must be preserved. Within that context, what we believe that there is a need of a dialogue between Muslims and the Americans as well. Muslims now are part of the American society. Certainly African Americans have been part of the American society for long, but the immigrant Muslims are the new addition to the American community, and with it new possibilities of relationship have emerged, that how Muslims can make life better for themselves and for the fellow Americans. So it is that kind of venture to develop the coordination and the understanding between
different faiths, right,
and different communities.
So we in the Orient, those who live in the Western countries, we have an apprehension that the Muslims in the Western countries do not get correct information about the Holy Quran and the Sunnah. So do you agree with this view?
No, that is, I think, a distorted view. Distorted view in the sense that you would be surprised that one of the best translations of the Quran in English language were done by people who lived in America. Right. Muhammad Asad. Right. He was the correspondent of New York Times in Europe, and he was born in Poland originally, but migrated right. to the United States, and then his wife is still there. He translated the best known translation of the Quran in English, which is called The Message of the Quran. That's one thing. Second thing, what is also very interesting, one of the first books that was written in English on Islam in America was written in 1894 by a Muslim whose name was Weber, Muhammad Weber. Right. He was the first Muslim who represented the United States in the Philippines as the what you call the envoy of the United States. And then also he also was one of the first Muslim speakers who spoke in the Parliament of World Religions that took place in 1893. Long ago. So the Muslims are present in the United States for long, and I think it's a wrong perception that Muslims do not get right information. Right now there are close to 3,000 mosques. There are close to approximately more than 600 Islamic schools and madrasas in the United States, which are attended by more than 200,000 students. And you would be surprised to hear that in the United States, in addition to having the English language newspapers, we have approximately 17 Arabic language newspapers. We have 4 Bangladeshi newspapers in Bengali, published from
which places are published from?
New York and Chicago and Houston. We also have publications in Persian.
Right.
So you would find America a unique country for Muslims and for the world as a whole, because this is for the first time that Muslims of all ethnicities and all cultures have come together to basically develop an understanding of each other.
So incidentally, what was which place was the first mosque built in the United States? We know that in Europe the first was, in England the first was in Woking.
Okay, the first mosque was built by the African slaves who were brought in the United States in the 16th and 17th century. Right. But we do not have the traces of that mosque. We basically hear references of that in books that have recently been published by the Harvard University professors, that those mosques were there in Colorado. And that, but the first mosque that was built is said it was built in 1921 in not very far from where Abraham Lincoln was born. So it is in the state of Illinois that the first mosque was built, and now we have more than 3,000.
Is it still there?
The mosque is still there.
Okay, thank you. So the next question comes to the rather not specifically related to religion, but to other.
Sure.
It's also related to politics.
Sure.
The President Obama, he has asked for change in every sphere of activity and in every domain of thought. So we welcome that thing. So how do the US Muslims respond to this aspiration of the president?
Now let me be very frank here that in my known understanding of the world, America is the only country that has shown to the world that the change is possible. Until 60 years ago, people did not have the rights to vote, the black people. Some 80 years ago, women did not have the rights to vote. But now the President of the United States is a black man. Yeah. The Secretary of the United States is a woman, and has been for the past 2 or 3 terms. Yes. So United States has shown to the world that it is possible that if people want to bring about change, they can bring about change. And that is what the message of the president has been, that we are now entering into a new world, a world which is dictated by technology, a world which is dictated by the scientific research that was unknown to humanity some 50 years ago. And in that particular world, we need to basically change our perspective towards the world in which we live. We need to change our perspective towards other fellow human beings. And then we basically have to create a unity in our purpose so that all can benefit and all can basically have a prosperous life and a peaceful life. And it is in that particular respect the Muslims respond to that particular call favorably. And that's why we find a lot of Muslims are part of the Obama administration, and they are working with that. The purpose is that we want to preserve the American constitutionality and the American unique identity. Because if that experiment is lost, then in my humble opinion, the hope...
The world will be poorer.
Exactly, right. The world will be poorer, because what we see in America is something that is unseen in any other place in the world.
So in the West, there are a number of misconceptions about women's rights in Islam. So how do people like yourself respond to such misgivings and misinterpretations before a non-Muslim audience?
Well, that's very interesting that the personal secretary and the personal assistant of the First Lady, former First Lady, Mrs. Clinton, was a Muslim girl.
Right.
She
What was her name?
Huma Ahmad.
Huma
She was involved in that.
Yes.
Then many of the people who were teaching in the United States, come from Pakistan and Bangladesh and other places. They have preserved their Islamic identity, and they have basically lived a life as a Muslim and as a modern Muslims without compromising their faith and without basically compromising their ideals. So that notion that the Islam does not provide that. Now, there is a problem, but we must realize the problem is that women in general in the Muslim societies, whether in the Middle East or in South Asia or Southeast Asia, have not been given the rights that have been given by the divine, or have not been given the respect that they deserve.
It's due to the misinterpretation of Islam.
It is not only the misinterpretation, but also the cultural thing, where we still live in patriarchal society, where we still have that male chauvinistic attitude towards fellow human beings. We still consider them as a rib of Adam. We still consider them as half human beings and all those kind of things. And these are the perceptions that we have developed as a result of our own biases that we inherited from history. But the fact is that those perceptions, are misfounded in the United States, as you would find Muslim women wearing hijab, for instance, driving the buses, being at the airport, or working in the military as well. I mean, you would find a few Muslim women now who are part of the military who wear hijab, or you will find Muslim women who are working in sensitive places in Washington. If you walk in Congress, 10 years ago, it was almost very difficult to find a Muslim face there. But now in the congressional building, the Muslims hold Friday prayers every week, which is attended by
So it's a great change
staff, by many staff, especially women who wear the hijab as well. So I think the problem is more cultural and more historical, in which the Muslim men have to basically realize that they are not the only one who basically have been given the dignity. Women do have the dignity, and that dignity is divinely ordained. And we are living in a world where it will not be tolerated anymore to discriminate against anyone on the basis of one's gender, one's religion, or one's ethnicities and one culture.
Thank you. So we know that the United States of America firmly believe in the freedom of speech.
Yes.
Everybody knows that. So even then, do you, as the editor of two Islam-oriented journals, where you had been simultaneously the editor of two Islamic journals, face any type of hindrance in your day-to-day activities?
No. I mean, President Obama, for instance, he was a critic of the war in Iraq.
Right.
Even though the administration was determined to fight in Iraq, he and many others were opposed to the idea that we should go to Iraq. So were many Americans. Every Thursday, thousands and hundreds of Americans would come out in the streets expressing their what you call attitude towards the war or their opposition to the war. So that freedom of press is guaranteed, and we believe that this is the only way to preserve the human dignity. Without freedom, our dignity is not preserved. Without freedom, our purpose of existence is incomplete. And I think you would find the United States giving that kind of clause in its constitution where it defends that, and it says that this is something that is not compromisable. And whenever any First Amendment, the First Amendment has been attacked by anyone, people have stood up against that, no matter what. No matter what. I mean, you know, even the rights of the people to say things that might hurt others has been accepted. And this is one of the most unique thing that you would find.
So
also
that means there is no problem at all whether you edit and Islam oriented or Hindu oriented.
No, there's no problem in that. I mean, you're free to express
So let's
your ideas.
come to the burning question now, the terrorism. So many in the Western countries, including the United States of America, unfortunately, there are many United States as well, in all countries, in our countries as well, they are trying to brand Muslims only as terrorists and Islam as an intolerant religion. So do you, as a Muslim in the United States, have to encounter any such threat or hostility?
Well, there are certain special interest groups
Right.
who would always try to exploit the situation to the advantage of their political interest. But if you look by and large, in general, the attitude of the American people, and especially this administration as well as the previous administration, you would find that they never branded Islam as a religion that promotes terrorism. Mr. Obama, when he talked about the Muslim world in his inauguration, he talked with dignity. He called the Muslim world a community of dignified people. He called the religion of Islam a religion of monotheism, a religion that believes in human dignity. He also said that we have no fight against Islam or Muslims and all those things.
Recently, he has also quoted an excellent hadith.
Yes.
Wow.
So I don't think that the United States, as a government or any other branch of government, even would attempt or dare to talk about Islam or any other religion in that negative fashion, because this is not the business of the government to interfere in any religion. And by constitution, we say that the Congress shall pass no law about any religion or shall not interfere in any other religious matter. So that is out of question. But there are certain interest groups who basically would make Islam look bad in the eyes of others. And this is the responsibility of Muslims, Americans, to stand up and challenge those perceptions. If anyone says that the Muslims are terrorists, we basically would argue that you cannot judge the entire community on the basis of the action of a few individuals who are not following their faith properly.
If a Hindu commits something that is not Hindu terrorism.
Exactly. So this is one of, and the second thing, we must also be very clear that there are people in our own community who believe that violence is the way to bring about social change.
Right.
I'm opposed to that. Muslim Americans are opposed to that. I'm sure you are opposed to that as
Yes.
well. That the violence can never be the means to bring about social change. And that is the issue that we basically have to raise. And in that particular respect,
You must be aware of the fact that we in Bangladesh as well, in Bangladesh, Hindus, Muslims, Christians and the Buddhists, they are living side by side in peace and harmony.
yes.
There's no problem at all, although it's more than 80% of the population is
Yes, indeed,
Muslim.
and indeed, there's no doubt about it. So, in that particular respect, we share that concern for human dignity. We share concerns for freedom. We share concerns for religious identity. We also share many other values which basically are on the same lines.
Now, interfaith harmony, you are associated with many organizations related to interfaith harmony. We know that the Holy Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he believed in interfaith harmony. He firmly believed in it. He signed treaties with the non-Muslims, permitted 60 Christians from Najran to say prayers right inside the Masjid Nabawi. He also allowed a Jew to participate in the holy war of Uhud. So there is no shadow of doubt that Islam permits interfaith harmony and encourages interfaith harmony. So in what way do the American Muslims emulate this noble principle of the Holy Prophet in establishing interfaith harmony?
Now, interfaith has become a movement in the United States and also in the West. In the United States particularly, there are more than 60 interfaith groups that are now working in different parts of the country.
Yes.
And from the local to national groups. And the idea basically is that all religions should have the freedom to exchange ideas and should have a code of conduct to at least speak with each other in a respectful and dignified manner. And this is something that is emerging in the United States, that the Christians, the Muslims, the Jews, Hindus, and all those, even atheists, people without any religion, would come together and would at least say that there are two things that we agree on. That first of all, we will not call each other names, will not ridicule each other's ideas, will be respectful to each other. And secondly, we will try to understand each other through direct sources. Rather than going to a non-Jew to know what Judaism is, I would rather go to a rabbi, to a Jew, to basically explain to me what Judaism is. And same is expected from those who are Muslims. So this is a new wave, new movement that is emerging. And in that respect, Muslims are part of that. Part of that, if you would remember that when in the cathedral, the religious services for the inauguration took place, among all other people, there was also a Muslim woman wearing the hijab who also said an invocation. She was Matson, who was the president of ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America. She's a woman, a Catholic who converted to Islam some 15 to 20 years ago, and she was invited by the White House to say the invocation. So the interfaith has become that kind of thing. Interfaith does not mean that we convert others. Interfaith does not mean that we basically change our faith.
And based on tolerance.
Yeah. Interfaith simply means that we will try to understand each other to the best of our ability.
So now we will like to know something about the community works that you have been associated with in the United States, besides all the interfaith and all, and those publications.
Okay, there are 3 other projects that we are involved there, together with other Christians and Jews and many other people and Muslims as well. First is that taking care of the homeless people. They are. It's unfortunate that even in the world's greatest democracy or the biggest democracy, we still have many homeless people who are living without homes and without any shelter, without any food. And certainly, as people who believe in the dignity of human being, we find that it is unacceptable to allow that situation wherever in the world. So what we have done is that we have created programs where our community participates in feeding the homeless people on a regular basis. We provide them food on a regular basis. And then we also open our mosques for them to come and take the shelter.
So thank you, Dr. Abdullah.
Welcome.
On behalf of ATN Bangla and its viewers, I extend my heartfelt thanks to you for kindly exchanging your learned views with us.
Thank you very much, ATN, for giving the Muslim Americans an opportunity to share the story of Muslims and Islam in America with you. And we are grateful that you have allowed us that opportunity and given us this time. Hopefully, we'll continue our discussions and dialogue in the future as well. Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity. It has been a pleasure.
So, dear viewers, thanks for listening, for viewing this program. Khuda Hafiz.